Chris Krok Show, News Talk 820 WBAP and 93.3 FM. Well, there was a big deal coming out this afternoon into the evening. The United States Supreme Court says it'll decide if Trump is qualified for the ballot, and I would assume it'll be a good decision on their part, and I pray that it is a unanimous or close to unanimous decision, smacking down the left's allegations that it's a Trump Supreme Court, etc., and it's all rigged. I wanted to talk to this gentleman who is a former U.S. attorney, and he filed an amicus brief, amicus, tomato, with the Supreme Court, supporting Donald J. Trump in his saying that he wants to be put back on the ballot, that he should be put back on the ballot. This is going to be a great discussion. J. Christian Adams, I guess I can just call you Christian Adams, correct, sir?
Sounds great.
Great. And you are the president and general counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation. You're also the founder of the Election Law Center. And from 2005 to 2010, you were in the voting section of the United States Department of Justice. Thanks for your service, and thanks for joining us on the Chris Krok program.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, brother. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, tell me about your amicus. You pronounce it amicus or amicus?
Either one. And, thank goodness the court took the case just a few hours ago. So we're very happy that the court is going to take the case.
Did you file what was your premise of your amicus brief for the Supreme Court supporting Donald J. Trump's efforts to appeal this decision to take him off the ballot?
Yeah, so Colorado took him off the ballot, and other states were doing so, like Maine, because they said that he violated the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment, which makes it, and nobody's ever heard of this until this year. Right. It makes it nobody can serve and run for office who was a former federal official that engaged in an insurrection or rebellion. And, this has never been relevant, but the Colorado Secretary of State took him off the ballot and said that he engaged in insurrection. Now, the problem with that, and this is what our brief says, that Congress repealed that part of the Constitution in 1872 and 1898. It's the only part of the Constitution that gave Congress the power to repeal it. And, normally you have to have an amendment to do that. But this was special, and it's not in effect anymore. That's what our brief said.
And why is that? Is it it's because Congress amended it, and is it because of it was all done about the Civil War? Is that why?
Yeah, well, that's part of it. But in 1872 and 1898, the United States was at war with Spain, and they needed officers. So, there was a lot of Confederates who weren't allowed to serve to fight Spain. So they repealed this, and they got rid of the insurrection clause, and it's done. It's gone. So the Colorado Secretary of State was relying on a part of the Constitution that no longer had a heartbeat.
Now go ahead, sorry.
No, that's it.
So she and the Maine, we call it the Secretary of State, they're not even lawyers. They don't even know they're not lawyers, are they?
Well, if they are, they aren't very good ones. I know that yeah, we've litigated cases, and we've beaten the Maine Secretary of State in federal court because she was hiding election information.
My gosh.
And we sued her, and we won.
Good.
So maybe she's not a very good lawyer, but, that's how it rolls.
And then she worked for the ACLU. She was a former United States Senate candidate. She was, these are activists. These aren't lawyers. Is that how you're reading all these people trying to take him off the ballot, Donald J. Trump?
Yeah, she has a Trump derangement syndrome decoder ring that she got in a cereal box that speaks to her about what she got to do.
It sure looks like it. Now today we learn, and by the way, for folks just tuning in, Christian Adams, president of the General Counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, is joining us, and also they filed an amicus brief, friend of the court brief, supporting Donald J. Trump's appeal, which was granted today for, is it February 8th in the Supreme Court. Illinois and Massachusetts voters seek to take Trump off the ballot. That comes today. Wow. Oh, wow. So this is pathetic. The petition adds one of the things it says from Illinois. It's from the liberal advocacy group Free Speech for People. They're asking the Illinois Board of Elections to hold hearing on the matter and bar Trump from appearing on the primary and general ballot. Isn't that amazing? The petition also adds, this is what I love, Trump has never expressed regret that his supporters, quote, violently attacked the Capitol, and nor has Trump ever apologized to anyone. So what the heck is this? Can you kick somebody off the ballot because they didn't apologize for doing something bad?
Yeah, pay close attention, because this is what the Soviets would do.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's like a one-party election. You aren't allowed to appear because you don't conform to the prevailing orthodoxy. This is exactly who these people are. Make no mistake about it. They are showing you who they are. They claim to be in favor of democracy, and then they take away the right of people to choose their candidate of choice. And so it shows they're hypocrites. They're taking a page out of the Soviet Union playbook on election administration. Go ahead.
Well, earlier I said, before I put you on, I said this is like what Putin would do in the Soviet Union. It's what Xi Jinping would do in China. This is what Nicolas Maduro does in Venezuela. This is exactly what they do, is it not? This is the Democrats, as you just said, they want one party on the ballot and no choices.
Yeah, and Trump makes them go crazy. I mean, love him or hate him.
Right.
Whatever your opinion is, it is destabilizing to the United States to have petty bureaucrats excluding candidates that they don't like. That is a third world tactic. It is a dangerous tactic, and it's going to cause a powder keg to go off if it were successful.
Couple of things. What do you think to any response? Jonathan Turley wrote a column, current George Washington University law professor, and of course Fox News contributor, and of course a liberal, but nonetheless a constitutionalist, from what I can tell. He says ballot cleansing. Democrats, in his column today, Democrats are moving to bar Republicans from ballots nationwide. Also, he talks about barring Republican Representative Scott Perry. Tell me your thoughts on that, and Turley's thoughts by saying they're going to take them all. I mean, they are looking to do it nationwide.
Right. The Pennsylvania congressman was one of the people advising Trump. I guess that qualifies you for removal from the ballot if the Maine Secretary of State doesn't like you advising the president. They can suggest you not be allowed to run. Now, here's the important thing. The Constitution settles this. Remember the term limits case from the 90s. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court said that the Constitution has the exclusive list of qualifications. You can only the checklist is not very long for who can run for president, and the Constitution swallows up the whims of these wacko secretaries of state. They don't have the power to add to the constitutional requirements, because you have to be 35, you have to be born in the United States, and that's it.
Former U.S. Attorney Christian Adams, president and general counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, he filed an amicus brief, front of the court brief, to the Supreme Court. They just said this afternoon that they would hear the case. I wanted to ask you, can you hold? I wanted to ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
Is that okay or no?
Yep.
Okay, good. I just want to sorry about that. I put you on the spot. Stand by. We'll ask a couple more questions. When I come back, I want to ask you what you think is going to happen. What do you think the Supreme Court is going to rule? What do you think the numbers will be on for and against? And why? Why do you think it'll go that way? And then one more thing. I wanted to ask you about Trump's case with Jack Smith, this leftist U.S. attorney, this agenda guy. Which cases are strong? Which do you think are not strong? what Trump should be worried about and what not, and how you think that's going to play out. We'll ask him that coming up next on the Chris Krok Show, News Talk 820 WBAP and 93.3 FM. Chris Krok Show, News Talk 820 WBAP 93.3 FM. We got to get this guy out of here to get his himself to his deer stand, which I have mad respect for. Christian Adams, President General Counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, filed an amicus brief supporting Trump getting back on the ballot. Thanks for holding. I want you to get out on that deer stand, my brother. I really do appreciate you sticking for another question or two. We'll get you out of here real fast, okay?
No worries. 5 a.m. up in the tree.
Oh, dude, I told my guy off the air, I said, dude, welcome to Texas. God bless Texas. Go pop you some deer. And if you see any of those nasty, what do you call it? What are the wild pigs? I forget now. I can't remember what they're called. Pop 'em and drop 'em, right?
I wish I did. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Last couple questions are... what do you think is going to happen in the Supreme Court case, and why, and is it going to be unanimous, or how close do you think it'll be on unanimity, hopefully?
Yeah, we could have a whole legal session on this issue, and I don't want to bore your listeners.
Nope.
I'm telling you, this is not a close call.
Right.
There was no insurrection finding by any body. The Senate acquitted. The Constitution under the term limits case only sets the term, and you can't add qualifications. And lastly, as we talked about, Congress repealed this provision. So to me, it's a 9-0 case. But because you've got two justices on the court that will, don't really, shall we say, worry too much about how clear it is. I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
Yeah.
I think 7-2 is probably more likely. But even Elena Kagan has enough sense to know that. So anyhow.
Last question is Trump on Jack Smith says I think he feels like he's losing politically, and also he filed a powerhouse quote-unquote motion, he says, Trump, for special counsel Jack Smith to be held in contempt of court for continuing to do stuff that he's not supposed to because it had a stay on his case, the D.C. case, while it's appealing, I believe. So what do you think, which cases do you think are slam dunk for Trump to win that have been brought against him, and which one should he be worried about?
Well, I got to tell you, the documents case is potentially most problematic because of the circumstances there. Of I think that's a tougher case than all the other nonsense cases.
That's what everybody else is saying. So you think he'll be in jail, or do you think any of these trials before he wins or loses the election?
Yeah, you're asking me a question about the procedural chess match on the scheduling orders, and I'm just not close enough to it.
Got it.
To really help.
All right, go hunt, go to bed, take some Benadryl, and wake up bright and early and go kick some butt and take names. Thank you for your time. Christian Adams, President, General Counsel, Public Interest Legal Foundation. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
There he goes. All right, take care. All right, so now I want to get into this. Here's what it is. The Biden administration is so afraid. Joe Biden, it's not the administration, it's him. He's the leader, he's the head, and he's the one who's afraid. He is so afraid of creating inflaming tensions. He's so afraid of making a bigger war. He's actually making a bigger war, and possibly a Middle East war, like broader, bigger, worse Middle East war because of his fecklessness. And that is the funniest thing. And I'm going to share some details in a minute from a retired general who was in charge of CENTCOM for 3 years. And he makes this clear, too. Like, Iran only responds to force, and when there's weakness, they continue to go, push, attack. And so Joe Biden is causing a bigger war, which, in fact, the Politico and the Wall Street Journal both today say that they are planning on. Joe Biden is planning on a wider Middle East war. Not that he wants one, but he's planning on it happening. Because what does he do? He responds. He waits, and then he hides, and then he responds. Instead of being the aggressor and setting the tone in the Middle East, he is allowing Iran, China, and Russia to control the entire Middle East setting and what's going to happen. He is reacting and responding to the Houthis, he took them off the terror watch list the first day he became president. What is wrong with this guy? They're a terrorist organization in Yemen funded by Iran. And people don't understand that one time one of our warships in the Red Sea, earlier on after the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel, they swarmed one of our warships with 14 drones, and we fought those drones for 9 hours. This is not there's a drone flying at me that my buddy bought at the store, and he's trying to hit me with a little improvised bomb. No, these are drones that we have to battle with. Like, this is not just a point and click and it's gone. A 9-hour battle. So why? And now he, as I told about the other day, he said, well, you better stop or else. Do you know what? We've all heard of Maersk, right? Maersk is that massive, if you haven't, you've probably heard the word once. It's the massive, I don't know if it's the biggest, but I'm going to guess it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, shipping company in the world. Maersk, I have no idea what the percentage is, but it's probably a fat percentage of the world's global trade. And guess what they just announced? They are going to stop. They literally effectively, as of today or yesterday, they stopped shipping through the Mandeb Al-Bab Strait, which is where it goes between in Yemen, where it's a strait right there. And so what does that mean? They're not going to the Red Sea anymore. They're going around the Cape of Hope for Africa. What does that mean? 2 to 4 weeks delay in your shipping. What does that mean? More money for you to pay, and more waiting and more expense in oil trade and everything. I went yesterday. I told you about this, that the numbers are pretty shocking, 15% of all global trade, 8% of all oil trade. Here's what it says today. Here's the headlines that show you that there's a wider war that's about to happen, and Joe Biden is getting ready for it. The headline from the Politico today: the war in Gaza may widen. Biden administration is getting ready for it. 4 officials told them today including a senior administration official, told the Politico that internal conversations about scenarios that could potentially draw the United States into another Middle East war are being prepared for. And they're saying they may be hitting back on the Houthi rebels who are attacking with Iran's blessing, funding, and all their missiles and drones. They anticipate fending off possible attacks on the U.S. by Iranian-backed forces in Iraq and Syria. So here's the thing. Joe Biden is causing war. He is fomenting the seeds for a wide war in the Middle East. This is what he's afraid of. He's causing it. Houthi attacks. This is from CNN Fake News today. Houthi attacks close vital Red Sea's route for Maersk container ships. The Suez Canal, which is where it goes through where Egypt is, down into the Red Sea, and then Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is where Yemen is. The Suez Canal handles 30% of global container trade. 30% of global container trade. You see that? Anything you buy from Europe, China, I don't want to, but we do sometimes. Anywhere you name it is coming through there. 30% of everything you buy. So, including oil. So, this could disrupt the global economy. Fake news CNN says today by delaying deliveries of goods, fuel, food, and pushing up our prices. All because Joe Biden's afraid. Do you see how this works? The Wall Street Journal today. U.S. steps up diplomatic push to avert a broader Middle East war. Wars are literally going to be happening because he's afraid. I'm going to continue with this next, but I want to get into this. I want to ask you this question. Do you think the serious possibility right now of a broader war in the Middle East, do you think there is a serious possibility of a broader war in the Middle East? Do you think it would not be happening under a Trump presidency? Do you think all this possibility where the whole Middle East could break out in war would not be happening under a Trump presidency? I do believe that's the case. I do believe we're about to see possibly a wider war in the Middle East because of Joe Biden's fecklessness, and it is disgusting and enraging and embarrassing for our country. You'll hear from the general that commanded CENTCOM for 3 years that's going to hand Biden his butt in some of the details he said in a must-read editorial in the Wall Street Journal today. That's next. Chris Krok Show, News Talk 820 WBAP 93.3 FM. So the headlines are not good from the Politico, from Wall Street Journal today. The Journal says, they both said the same thing, basically. U.S. steps up diplomatic push to avert broader Middle East war. The Politico says the war in Gaza may widen. Biden administration is getting ready for it. He is, by choosing to allow us, we've been hit 120 times now. We've been hit 120 times from terrorists, all funded, trained, and directed by Iran. And this general, General Kenneth McKenzie Jr., he is a retired Marine general who wrote an editorial in the Wall Street Journal today, and he was the commander of CENTCOM for 3 years, in 2019 to 2022. He would know. And he talks about this editorial, the lesson of the strike that killed Soleimani. And he actually says we weren't responding properly, and we should have been more bold in the run-up to this, but that the killing Qasem Soleimani was good. He was actually preparing to do an attack on us at that time. He was coordinating attacks. He was arriving in Iraq to coordinate attacks on our embassy and coalition targets across the region. He was the head of the Iranian Republican Guard Corps and the Quds Force. So that means he was the intelligence and military right-hand man for the entire administration for Iran. He was their chief guy. We killed him under Trump as he was planning to hurt us, to kill us and attack us in Iraq. This is... you have to realize how broadly Iran is responsible for all this terrorism, not all of it, but a tremendous amount of it in the Middle East. And the terrorism they're responsible for is not only in Yemen with the Houthis attacking all the shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, not only are they responsible for, it's long, the list. Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Iraq, Syria, and they also were responsible for providing IEDs to blow up and kill our troops in Afghanistan. So, this is amazing how broadly their tentacles are throughout the Middle East. And their goal, as General says, Iran's goal is to kick us out of the Middle East. Did you know that? And Joe Biden's doing the best he can. Do you know he took us out of that... out of Bagram Air Force Base? Trump was never going to take us out of Bagram. It's like $1 billion base, and it's only several hundred miles from China and several hundred miles from Iran. And now, as you know, we have to go way, way, way far to do any attacks in Iran, Middle East, or China if there's something should happen, God forbid. So anyway, but he says... Iranian leaders work with Lenin's dictum that you probe with bayonets. If you find mush, you push. If you find steel, you withdraw. The ability to stop probing generally depends on a swift and violent counterattack. Delaying and equivocating means the response needed to reestablish deterrence has to be much larger than it would have been if it was applied in a timely manner. This is where Joe Biden's put us. By doing little to nothing for a long time, we have to hit insanely harder to stop this, and we're not. We've been hit 120 times. So now we're seeing in headlines across the news today that Biden's preparing for a wider Middle East war. Do you think any of this would be happening if Trump was in office? And don't you think this is because of Biden's fecklessness? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Now we're looking at a very possible war that will increase and flare out throughout the Middle East. My gosh. What a war president, huh? He got us into war when he told us he would not take us into war. He'd get us out. It's amazing. The Journal says today the prospects for escalation are significant, and I fear that it's going to continue on this trajectory with incremental worsening of the situation, with the increased likelihood of miscalculation. And that's where I wanted this. That was one of their experts they interviewed for the Journal today. And that's one of the things I want to tell you. I heard from one of the generals, Frank Keating, who's on Fox News a lot. He said about a year or two ago with regard to the war in Ukraine with Russia, Wars are begun by mistakes. And so all it takes is one little mistake that'll start a war. Like, countries don't usually choose, okay, let's go to war. A mistake happens in some combat issue or some sort, and then it leads to a war. And how ripe are we in the Middle East for this, the way Joe Biden's prosecuting things? So, and by the way, Iran has also moved a warship into the Red Sea. And we've seen all the Houthi drones and missiles out of Yemen attacking. So this factlessness has left us to a situation where, according to General McKenzie, we now have to hit way harder. And that's not happening, and it's not going to happen. And then, by the way, the Biden administration said, well, if you attack us again, if you keep this up in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Houthis will attack you. That's what they said yesterday. What an embarrassment. If you keep this up, we'll attack you. So that's where we're at right now. And honestly, it's embarrassing as an American. Russia, meantime, is moving forward with plans to buy Iranian ballistic missiles to arm them to shoot into Ukraine. That shows the tremendous lengthy synergy. Russia also supplied a lot of the rifles and other armaments for Hamas and other terrorists in the Middle East because they're besties with Iran. And this from the Free Beacon today to show you how pathetic Joe Biden is with all these conflicts with Islamists at home. Free Beacon did a freedom of request and other complaints filed by the American First Legal Foundation. Biden administration not investigating violence and vandalism by Hamas supporters, a complaint alleges. This complaint says that the Biden administration is dragging its feet on the prosecution of Hamas sympathizers across the United States, including U.S. visa holders and other foreign nationals living in America. According to the American First Legal Foundation, they also cite information from U.S. officials and career Justice Department attorneys. It appears that concerns regarding the potential electoral consequence of protecting Jewish Americans and enforcing American anti-terrorism laws or sympathy for Hamas's aims are inappropriately biasing the Justice Department's decision-making. So, would it shock you if they were right? That literally people who don't even belong in our country, that are on visas and that aren't U.S. citizens, are supporting and chanting and part of things that support Hamas terrorists, and Joe Biden won't kick them out? But he wants to, he and his allies support removing Trump from the ballot and putting him in jail? God help us where this country is headed. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. Coming up next on the Chris Krok Show, I wanted to get into this case. A single mom, we talked about it the other day, earlier this week, a single mother of four in Fort Worth. The apartment complex or the home she's living in, the landlord does not want her having guns. No guns. But yet they do not protect her. No security. And so she's got four kids that are between the ages of, I think, 3 or 4 and 10 years of age. So these are little ones. And she's getting people breaking into her house. And so one night, a guy repeatedly is breaking in. Somebody's trying to break into her children's room. And finally, she pops and drops this guy. Turns out to be a 14-year-old middle school student. There's some new developments on her case about being kicked out of her house because she actually she had the gall to defend herself with a firearm. First, let's go to Randy in New Mexico. You're live on News Talk 820 WBAP and 93.3 FM. Hey, Randy.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
How are you, bud?
I'm good. Hey, I was just wondering, has anybody thought about this? What if we go to war and something happens catastrophically here in the States and Biden just turns around and surrenders? What do we do then?
Surrenders to who? Like, how would that be, you mean?
I mean, like if China or somebody shoots a nuclear bomb over here or something, and Biden says, "Okay, we give up. I'll surrender."
I don't think this poor guy would know what to do if we got attacked. I mean, look what he did with the balloon.
What happened?
What's that?
What happened?
Yeah, I don't know, man, but I know that all of his military advisors, all of his generals told him, do not pull out of Afghanistan like he did. He did it anyways. They've been begging him, and his military has been begging him and telling him, according to many published reports I've read in the past couple months, please let us hit these terrorists hard that are attacking us. 120 attacks. All we've done is bomb sheds, storage facilities, and we happen to kill 3 boats that were taken over a Maersk ship the other day in the Red Sea. We sunk them, but that's only because they were in the middle of taking something over, but we didn't do any other action. So, and then with China, we saw the balloon went over. We find out that he lied to us. They did get a tremendous amount of information over us, and when they were flew over our country with the balloon, and they did send tons of bursts of information through our own telecom cable companies they used to send the intel, and Joe lied to us about that and covered it up. So he has been surrendering, and he is allowing these people that talk like this to be in charge of us, and the entire Middle East. By choice. So I don't know what he would do. I know he probably won't do any of what his military advisors say, and I do know that former SecDef Bob Gates wrote 10 years ago that I like Joe Biden a lot. He wrote in his book, but he's been wrong on every foreign policy decision for 40 years, and now it's 50 years, and he's been wrong on every single foreign policy decision. So people put him in office. We're screwed.
They need to get him out. They need to get him out of office right now.
I pray to God. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can keep him off the ball. Maybe we can get him off the ballot for doing all these things.
Take him off the ballot.
Let's do that. All right, Randy. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. All right, coming up next, we'll get into this. We have a big development that came out this afternoon with regards to that single mom of 4 who shot and killed a burglar that was trying to break in repeatedly throughout the night. She called the cops and he kept breaking in, so she ended up popping him and dropping him. And there's a big development on the apartment/home, whatever she's in, where her landlord was going to kick her out because she wasn't supposed to have guns. All that next on the Chris Krok Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and 93.3 FM. Great report by Fox 4's Sean Rabb. Haven't had him on the show in a while. I got to get him on soon. I like that guy. Good reporter. Very good street reporter. He interviewed the woman named Aaliyah Wallace, who is a single mom of 4. The kids are like between 4 and 10. And somebody was terrorizing her one night, continuing to break into their rooms, which is absolutely insane. And when you're a single mother with 4 little ones, that's terrorizing. I always tell you that the great equalizer is a handgun or a gun, any kind of gun. I always tell you to make sure, I don't want to just say this without saying what I've learned from one of my dear friends, who's a police officer and a former Marine, who taught me. He was the first person to teach me firearms, handling, shooting, everything. And years ago, when I was in Atlanta, at the WBAP of Atlanta, and he took me to a range, and he was the first person to take me to a range. And he told me, don't own a gun until you're trained, because they will use it against you. He said, don't even have a taser unless you're trained. And it's not because he's against this stuff. He's rarely for it. He's got more guns and ammo than I will ever have, and I wish I had as many as he does. He has the bunker, famously named, where in Atlanta, where you can have a basement. So he just says it because it's true. So I stand by what he taught me. He knows a lot more than I'll ever know. And so what I will do is tell you this: do not have your gun in your possession or in your house unless you're trained, unless you want to be an idiot. And you don't want something bad to happen. Get trained, and then rent a gun at the range until you rent a gun, try out a few, and then whatever you're comfortable with, then purchase that gun after you're trained and are familiar with it and such. You don't have to be trained in some in-depth things, the basic training course. And then I do recommend your LTC, because your license to carry, even though you don't have to have it anymore, because reciprocity is great. Reciprocity is where you go to, there's so many states around us that allow it, which means my concealed carry permit is valid in Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, probably Louisiana, I would guess. I don't know for sure on that one. New Mexico, and Colorado. I love traveling that way. I'm always like, yeah, I got my firearm and I don't have to worry about anything. It's just nice, peace of mind. So she was broken into numerous times. She shot and killed this 14-year-old middle school student who should have been sleeping, getting ready for class tomorrow, and instead was breaking in and terrorizing her and the kids. And the apartment said, or the house or whatever it is, it's federally subsidized housing, and they said, nope. The landlord said, you're out. You're not allowed to have a gun. So they don't protect her, and then she can't do this. Well, what happened was Republicans, at least one or two of them, adopted her, if you will, and took for her cause and went nuts with it. State Representative State Representative Carrie Isaac from Wimberley saw the story on Fox 4 and began fighting for her. She said, it made me very angry. No one should be denied their Second Amendment right because they live in public housing. It's unconstitutional. Amen. Good news. The apartment place changed their mind. And in fact, Sean Rabb says, cops didn't file charges. Grand jury will review. That's just standardized. Texas law seems to be on her side. In 2019, lawmakers passed a bill that forbids landlords from prohibiting apartment residents from possessing a gun. Freaking men! Mom says, I have 4 daughters. It's just me and my 4 daughters that stay here. I was just protecting my daughters. I'm devastated he was 14. I hate that. I literally do, and I'm sorry. But at that point, I think I had to think about my babies. I didn't know he was 14, and he was on the other side of that window. All I knew was it was somebody that could come in and hurt me or my kids. That's it. Hey, you got nothing to apologize for. Good job. I know it's sad, but you didn't do anything wrong. Good job. And thank you, Carrie Isaac, Republican state representative from Wimberley, who fought for her and I believe is chiefly responsible, along with the news coverage, for getting them to back down. She won. She stays there. And if you break into that house, you will be popped and dropped. Well done, Mom. Well done. This is exactly why getting trained and armed is the best thing you can do to protect your family. And I compare this to the state of California, which disgusts me. They just passed more anti-gun laws, saying the Democrat rep was I heard a clip from him on Fox News, and they passed a law saying you can't carry in public places. I mean, what the HE hockey sticks is this? The reason we carry is so we can protect ourselves in public places. And this idiot California legislator said the other day, and it was on Fox, he said, when you go to the grocery store, you should bring a bag, not a gun with you. When you go to the shopping mall, you should bring a credit card, not a gun with you. Hey, bro, if you're next to somebody who starts shooting and killing people, you're going to wish one of us had a gun on us. You clown. All right, coming up next, one more thing on guns I want to get into. Gun safety. This is sad. 13-year-old North Texas boy dead after accidentally shooting himself. Oh, I got to talk about. And I want to hear about you, what you recommend parents should do to how to deal with these firearms in homes when they have kids.